Welcome to Warhammer 40k 8th edition Battle Report 29, 2,000 points, Chaos Demons of Nurgle versus Dark Angels. This will be the chapter-approved Eternal War mission, Dominate and Destroy. We will be rolling for a random map deployment today. And for a full overview of the armies and the war gear that they are bringing, please check out the pregame that was released at the beginning of the group. Let's take a quick look at the board and where the objective markers have been placed. Beginning over in this 2 foot by 2 foot section, the objective marker has been placed here towards the middle next to this ruin. In this middle 2 foot by 2 foot section, the objective marker has been placed right in the middle of the section. In this 2 foot by 2 foot section, the objective marker has been placed more towards this edge next to this ruin. Over on the other side of the board, in this 2 foot by 2 foot section, the objective marker has been placed over next to this edge by this ruin. In this 2 foot by 2 foot section, the objective marker has been placed in the middle next to this crater. And finally, in this 2 foot by 2 foot section, the objective marker has been placed towards this corner next to this ruin. A reminder that the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will have 9 command points available for this battle report, and the Dark Angels will have 8 command points available. Because this is the mission Dominate and Destroy, we will not be using the tactical objective cards. Instead, at the end of each of the army's player turns, they will score a number of victory points based off of how many objectives that they are currently holding. So for example, if at the end of turn 1, the Dark Angels are holding 3 objective markers, they will score 3 victory points. Also, at the end of the game, we will be tallying up kill points for additional victory points. And so now we will be rolling for the random map deployment. And here's the roll, getting a 2, which is Dawn of War. So on a roll of a 1, 2, or 3, the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will begin deploying on this side off to the left, and the Dark Angels will deploy off to the right. On a 4, 5, or 6, it'll be the opposite, so Chaos Demons of Nurgle on the right, and Dark Angels on the left. And here's the roll, getting a 1, so the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will be on the left, and the Dark Angels will be off to the right. Now on a roll of a 1, 2, or 3, the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will begin to deploy first, and on a 4, 5, or 6, the Dark Angels will begin deploying first. Getting a 4, so the Dark Angels will begin to deploy first. We will be back after the deployment. The deployment is now finished. The Dark Angels began to deploy first, and they also finished deploying first, so they will get +1 for the roll-off to determine who goes first. Let's begin by taking a quick look at where each of the armies placed all of their units. Beginning on the Dark Angels side of the deployment, going from left to right, down the line, we have the squad of Ravenwing Black Knights, Ravenwing Talonmaster, 1st Squad of Tactical Marines, 1st Nephilim Jet Fighter, 2nd Nephilim Jet Fighter, 2nd Squad of Tactical Marines, Land Raider Redeemer with Belial and Deathwing Knights embarked inside, Predator, and finally the 3rd Squad of Tactical Marines. Moving over to the Chaos Demons of Nurgle deployment, going from right to left down the line, we have the 1st Squad of Plague Drones, Demon Prince of Nurgle with Wings, Squad of Plague Bearers, Great Unclean One armed with Plague Flail, the Warlord Rodigus, 2nd Squad of Plague Bearers, 2nd Squad of Plague Drones, 2nd Demon Prince of Nurgle with Wings, 2nd Great Unclean One armed with Corruption, and finally the 3rd Squad of Plague Bearers. And so now we will roll off for who will go first. The Dark Angels will be the gold and blue dice, and they will get +1 to their roll. The white dice will be the Chaos Demons of Nurgle. And so here's the roll. Chaos Demons of Nurgle rolled a 4, Dark Angels rolled a 5, and with the +1 we'll get a 6, so the Dark Angels will go first. However, now the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will attempt to seize the initiative, and they are looking for 6. And they almost got it, rolling a 5. So let's go into Dark Angels turn 1. Going into Dark Angels turn 1, a reminder that the Dark Angels have 8 command points available, and the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have 9 command points available. So going into the movement phase, we will start with the squad of Ravenwing Black Knights, who have a movement characteristic of 14 inches. However, they will only move up the board about 7 to 8 inches in order to get just within 18 inches of the Plague Drones across the battlefield from them. And they will finish their movement like so. Next, the Ravenwing Talonmaster has a movement characteristic of 16 inches, but he is only going to move up the board a little bit to get right behind the squad of Ravenwing Black Knights. And the Ravenwing Talonmaster will finish its movement right here. This squad of Tactical Marines will remain still. This Nephilim Jet Fighter is now going to pivot up to 90 degrees to its left, and it will move up the board at least 20 inches, but no more than 50. and it will finish its movement right here. The other Nephilim jet fighter will now do the same thing, pivoting up to 90 degrees to its left and moving up the board at least 20 inches but no more than 50. And it will finish its movement right here. This squad of tactical marines will remain still. This Land Raider Redeemer is now going to move up the board just a couple of inches so that it gets just within 24-inch range of the other Plague Drone squad. And it will finish its movement right there. This Predator will remain still. And finally, this squad of tactical marines will remain still. Going into the shooting phase, for Dark Angels turn 1, we will begin with this squad of Ravenwing Black Knights, all firing supercharged shots with their plasma talons into this squad of Plague Drones. And the Dark Angels are going to use the stratagem Weapons from the Dark Age for 1 command point to bring them from 8 down to 7. Use this stratagem just before a Dark Angels unit from your army attacks in your shooting phase. Increase the damage characteristic of that unit's plasma weapons by 1 until the end of the phase. For the purposes of the stratagem, a plasma weapon is any weapon profile whose name includes the word plasma. And because it is supercharged, we will have to fire their shots separately, and so we will start with the sergeant and then we will move down the line. So we will begin with the sergeant, and then this will be Black Knight number 1, Black Knight number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, in case any of them are killed off by rolling a 1. So beginning with the sergeant, 2 attacks, hitting a hit and a miss, but not a 1. Black Knight number 1, 2 hits. Black Knight number 2, a hit and a 1. And the Dark Angels are going to spend a command point going from 7 down to 6 for a command reroll to reroll the 1. And so here's the reroll, getting another hit. Black Knight number 3, fails to hit, but no 1s. Black Knight number 4. Ooh, fails and rolls a 1. And so regular Ravenwing Black Knight number 4 is killed off, which is this one right here. And Black Knight number 5. Wow, also rolling the same thing, a 1 and a 2, and so he is killed off. So this Ravenwing Black Knight is killed off as well. So that was pretty poor, getting 5 hits total out of 12 attacks, hitting on 3s. Strength 8 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, rerolling 1s thanks to the Talon Master, and getting 5 wounds. 5 up and vulnerable saves. Wow, and they failed all 5 of them. That's pretty unstatistical as well. And so of course that's a total of 15 damage. However, the damage does not carry over from model to model, and we also have to resolve Disgustingly Resilient. So we will do the strikes one at a time, starting with strike number 1, 3 5-ups for Disgustingly Resilient and failing all 3. So 1 Plague Drone has now been reduced from 4 starting wounds down to 1. Strike number 2, passing 2, but failing 1, of course, so that will remove the final wound from the first Plague Drone, and that Plague Drone will be killed off. Strike number 3, will pass 1 but failing 2, so a second Plague Drone will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 2. Strike number 4 will pass 1 but failing 2 as well, so that will finish off the 2 remaining wounds from the second Plague Drone. So finally, strike number 5 will pass 1 but failing 2, so that will take a third Plague Drone from 4 starting wounds down to 2. So this regular Plague Drone right here will be fully killed off. This regular Plague Drone right here in the back will also be killed off. And then finally, this regular Plague Drone on the edge will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 2. Next, the Ravenwing Talon Master will fire everything that it has into the squad of Plague Drones. 12 shots, hitting on 3s, and only getting 6 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting 4 wounds, and 2 rerolls. And here's the rerolls. Getting all 6 wounds. 6 5-up and vulnerable saves. Passing 4, failing 2. 1 damage apiece, so 2 5-up Disgustingly Resilient rolls, and failing both. Which does mean that the third and final regular Plague Drone will lose its 2 remaining wounds and be killed off. 6 shots from the Twin Heavy Bolter, hitting on 3s, getting 6 hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 4 wounds and 2 rerolls. And here's the 2 rerolls, getting 1 additional wound. 5 up invulnerable saves, passing 1 and failing 4. 1 damage apiece, so 4 5 up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 2 and failing 2. And so the instrument will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 2. Next, this Nephilim jet fighter will fire everything that it has into this squad of plague drones. Starting with the 2 shots from the Black Sword missile launchers, hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit. Strength 7 versus toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, rerolling 1s. And of course, failing to wound. 10 shots from the Avenger Mega Bolter, hitting on 3s, getting 8 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting 7 wounds. 7 5 up invulnerable saves. We're not on disgustingly resilient yet. 7 5 up invulnerable saves, passing 2, failing 5. Now for 5 up disgustingly resilient rolls, only passing 1, failing 4. So the instrument will lose its final 2 wounds and be removed, and then the Plague Drone Sergeant will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 2. Finally, 6 shots from the Twin Heavy Bolter, hitting on 3s, getting 3 hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 wounds. 2 5 up invulnerable saves, passing 1 and failing 1. So 1 5 up disgustingly resilient roll, which passes. Now the other Nephilim jet fighter will fire everything that it has into this squad of 2 plague drones. Starting with the 2 Black Sword missile launcher shots, hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits. Strength 7 versus toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, rerolling 1s, course rolling a 2, getting 1 wound. 1 5 up invulnerable save, which passes. 10 shots from the Avenger Mega Bolter, hitting on 3s, getting 6 hits. Strength 6 versus toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting 4 wounds and 2 rerolls. And here's the 2 rerolls. Still failing to wound. 4 5 up invulnerable saves, failing all 4. 4 5 up disgustingly resilient rolls, and passing all 4 of them. Alright then. 6 shots from the Twin Heavy Bolter, hitting on 3s, getting 3 hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 4s, rerolling 1s. Good thing too, getting 1 wound and 2 rerolls. And here's the 2 rerolls, getting 1 additional wound. 2 5 up invulnerable saves, passing 1 and failing 1, and 1 5 up disgustingly resilient roll, which also passes. So this Nephilim jet fighter did nothing. Fantastic. Next, the plasma cannon from this tactical marine squad will fire supercharged shots into this squad of 2 plague drones. D3 supercharged shots, getting 2 shots. Hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 hits. Strength 8 versus toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, rerolling 1s thanks to the Talon Master, getting a wound and a reroll. And here's the reroll. Getting 2 wounds total. 2 5 up invulnerable saves, passing 1 and failing 1, but they are 2 damage apiece since it's supercharged, so 2 5 up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 1 and failing 1. So the Plague Drone Sergeant will fall from 2 wounds down to 1. Next, this tactical marine squad is going to fire its plasma cannon with supercharged shots into Rodigus. D3 supercharged shots, getting 2 shots. Hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 hits. Strength 8 versus toughness 7 means wounding on 3s, getting 2 wounds. 2 5 up invulnerable saves, passing 1 and failing 1. 2 damage apiece for being supercharged, however, so 2 5 up disgustingly resilient rolls, and passing both of those. This Land Raider Redeemer is now going to fire its twin assault cannon into this squad of plague drones. 12 shots, hitting on 3s. Getting 8 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s. Getting 5 wounds. 5 up invulnerable saves, passing 1 and failing 4. And they are 1 damage apiece, so 4 5 up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 2 and failing 2. And so 1 regular plague drone in the back will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 2. Next, this Predator is going to fire everything that it has into the Great Unclean One armed with Corruption. Starting with 2 last cannon shots, hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit. Strength 9 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on a 3. And it fails to wound. 2 D3 Predator autocannon shots, getting 5 shots, hitting on 3s, getting a bad hit roll of 2 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 4s, getting 1 wound. 1 5 up invulnerable save, which passes. Finally, this tactical marine squad will fire its plasma cannon with supercharged shots into the Great Unclean One armed with Corruption. D3 shots, getting 2 shots, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, rolling double 1s, So here's the 2 rerolls, getting a hit but also killing himself. So after we resolve this shot, that plasma cannon will be killed off. But there was 1 hit, so strength 8 versus toughness 7 means wounding on a 3. And it wounds. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which fails, and it is 2 damage apiece, so 2 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 1 and failing 1. So this Great Unclean One will fall from 18 starting wounds down to 17. So going into the assault phase, there are no charges to declare, which means going into the fight phase, there are no fights to resolve. And so now going into the morale phase, this squad of Ravenwing Black Knights did lose 2 models this turn. However, thanks to their special ability, Inner Circle, they automatically pass morale checks, so they will not have to take one. This unit of Plague Drones lost 4 models this turn, however, they are within 6 inches of a Great Unclean One, and therefore, thanks to the Greater Demon special rule, they can use his leadership of 10, which means therefore it is impossible for them to fail, even though they lost 4 models. However, they will still take a morale check, because thanks to the demonic icon, if they roll a 1, they will get a slain model back. And so here's their roll for their morale check, and they roll a 4, so they fail. However, Chaos Demons of Nurgle will use 1 command point, going from 9 down to 8, for a command reroll in order to reroll that 4. And so here's the reroll, and they roll another 4. So they pass and nothing happens. And so at the end of Dark Angels turn 1, the Dark Angels are currently holding 3 objective markers. And so the Dark Angels currently have a score of 3 victory points, and the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have a score of 0 victory points. Going into Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn 1, a reminder that the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have 8 command points available, and the Dark Angels have 6 command points available. And before we move into the movement phase, I do need to go back and remove the plasma cannon from this 1 Tactical Marine squad, since it rolled double 1s, and then on the rerolls still managed to roll a 1 again. So this plasma cannon will be removed. This does mean, of course, that they were eligible to take a morale test. However, the Sergeant has a leadership of 8, and therefore it is impossible for them to fail after only losing 1 model. And so at the start of their turn, the Chaos Demons of Nurgle do need to resolve reverberating summons, thanks to this squad of Plague Drones being within 7 inches of that Great Unclean One. So on a roll of a 4-up, a slain model will be returned to the unit. And so here's the roll, rolling a 2, but the Chaos Demons of Nurgle are going to use 1 command point, going from 8 down to 7 for a command reroll in order to reroll the 2. And here's the reroll, rolling only a 1, so they wasted the command point and will not get a slain model back. So going into the movement phase, this Great Unclean One, armed with a Plague Flail, is going to move up the board up to 7 inches, and he will also declare an advance. And here's his advance roll, and rolling a 2, so getting 9 inches of total movement. And it will finish its movement right here. Next, this squad of 2 Plague Drones will move up the board up to 10 inches. And they will finish their movement right here. Next, this Demon Prince of Nurgle is going to move up the board up to 12 inches. And he will finish his movement right there. This squad of Plague Bearers is now going to move 5 inches up the board in order to hold this objective marker. And they will finish their movement right here. Next, Rodigus is going to move up the board up to 7 inches, and he will also declare an advance. And here's the advance roll for Rodigus, rolling just 2 inches for 9 inches of total movement. And Rodigus will finish his movement right there. This squad of Plague Bearers will remain still. This squad of Plague Drones will now move up the board up to 10 inches, and they will also declare an advance. And here's their advance roll, rolling just 1 additional inch, but they get to add 1 thanks to their instrument for up to 12 inches of total movement. And the Plague Drones will end up right here. Next, the Great Unclean One, armed with Corruption, will move up the board up to 7 inches, and he will also declare an advance. And here's his advance roll, rolling 3 additional inches for up to 10 inches of total movement. And the Great Unclean One will finish here. Now, this squad of Plague Drones is going to move up just a couple of inches to better hold that objective marker. And they will finish like so. Finally, this Demon Prince of Nurgle is going to move up the board up to 12 inches. He will finish right here. And at the end of the movement phase, the Chaos Demons of Nurgle are going to use the stratagem Revolting Regeneration for 2 command points, bring them from 7 down to 5. Use this stratagem at the end of your movement phase. Select one of your Nurgle demon units. 1 model in that unit regains D3 lost wounds. If there are no wounded models in the unit, and that unit has suffered any casualties, a single slain model from that unit is returned to play with 1 wound remaining. And they will use the stratagem on the squad of 2 Plague Drones in order to try to get some wounds back on the Sergeant, who's down to 1 wound. And so here's the roll. Rolling just a 1. But since the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have not used a command reroll yet in the movement phase, they did use one at the start of the turn, but that was not part of the movement phase. So the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will use one more command point, going from 5 down to 4, for a command reroll to reroll the 1. And here's the reroll, making it into a 2 from the D3. So the Plague Drone Sergeant will go back up from 1 wound to 3. So going into the Psychic phase, the Great Unclean One armed with a Plague Flail is going to attempt to manifest Smite onto this squad of Ravenwing Black Knights because it is the closest visible enemy unit. This model right here is closer than either the Ravenwing Talonmaster or the base of the Nephilim Jetfighter. And so Smite has a warp charge value of 5, and he gets it with a 5. And it will cause D3 mortal wounds, and it will cause just 1 mortal wound. So this Ravenwing Black Knight on the end will fall from 2 wounds down to 1. Next, this Demon Prince of Nurgle will attempt to manifest Smite onto the same squad of Ravenwing Black Knights. Smite now is a warp charge value of 6, and he gets it with a 9. It will cause D3 mortal wounds. It will cause just 1 mortal wound. So the Ravenwing Black Knight on the end will fall from 1 wound down to 0 and be removed. This Demon Prince of Nurgle will now attempt to manifest Fleshy Abundance onto the squad of Plague Drones in front of him. Fleshy Abundance has a warp charge value of 5, and he fails with a 4. Rodigus is now going to attempt to manifest Smite and Miasma of Pestilence. Miasma of Pestilence, of course, will go on to himself, and Smite will be directed towards this squad of Tactical Marines because they are the closest visible enemy unit. They are about 1/4 of an inch closer than the Land Raider Redeemer to Rodigus. So beginning with Smite, which now is a warp charge value of 7, and it passes with an 8. And it will do D3 mortal wounds, and it will do just 1 mortal wound. However, thanks to passing the Psychic test with a test of 7 or more, Rodigus, thanks to Deluge of Nurgle, will do a mortal wound to the closest enemy unit, which of course is the Tactical Marine squad. So 2 mortal wounds onto the squad, and the squad is now down to 3 models. Miasma of Pestilence onto himself has a warp charge value of 6, and he passes that with a 7, which of course means that 1 more mortal wound, thanks to Deluge of Nurgle, will go onto the Tactical Marine squad. Finally, the Great Unclean One armed with Corruption will attempt to manifest Smite onto the Predator, because it is the closest visible enemy unit within 18 inches. And Smite now is a warp charge value of 8, and it passes with an 8. And it will do D3 mortal wounds, and it will do 3 mortal wounds. And so the Dark Angels are going to use the stratagem, the Armor of Contempt, for 1 command point, bringing them from 5 down to 4. Use this stratagem when a Dark Angel's vehicle from your army suffers a mortal wound. Roll a d6 for that mortal wound and each other mortal wound inflicted on this model for the rest of the phase. On a 5-up, that mortal wound is ignored. So looking for 3 5-ups, and failing all 3. And I think I lost track of the command points, because I think when they used the stratagem, they actually still had 6 left, not 5. So they now have 5 command points left, and now they will go down to 4 in order to use a command point for a command reroll to reroll the 4. And here's the reroll, rolling another 4. So all 3 will go through. Thanks to suffering 3 mortal wounds, this Predator will fall from 11 starting wounds down to 8. Going into the shooting phase, this squad of Plague Drones is going to fire everything that it has into the squad of Ravenwing Black Knights. 4 shots hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting a hit, a definite miss, and 2 rerolls. And here's the 2 rerolls, getting 3 hits total. Strength 4 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 5s, rerolling 1s, getting a wound, a fail, and a reroll. And here's the reroll, still failing to wound. No AP, so 1 3-up armor save, which passes. Going into the assault phase, this squad of Plague Drones is going to declare a charge onto the squad of Ravenwing Black Knights. They are 7.5 inches away, which means they need a 7-inch charge. Thanks to the craters, however, they will have to subtract 2, which means they need to roll a 9. But first, we have to resolve Overwatch, and so we will start by using the stratagem Weapons from the Dark Age, once again for 1 command point, bring them from, I think, 4 down to 3. I will check that in post. Once again, this will add 1 to the damage of plasma weapons. And this time they will only fire standard shots so that they don't kill off any more of their own guys. So 6 shots total, hitting on 6s, getting 2 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 wounds. 2 5-up and vulnerable saves, failing both. And while it is 4 damage total, unfortunately it's 2 groups of 2, and so at best they would only be able to take the 3 wounds off of the Plague Drone Sergeant, so we can roll them all together. Because no matter what, none of the wounds will carry over onto the banner. So 4 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 2 and failing 2. So the Plague Drone Sergeant will fall back down from 3 wounds to 1. And here's their charge distance, getting 10 inches, which will be enough to put them in base to base. And thanks to the crater, this Plague Drone is very wobbly and will probably fall off of the table. So going into the fight phase, beginning with the Plague Drones, we will start with their 3 attacks from their Plague Swords, hitting on 4s, getting 1 hit. Strength 4 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on a 5, re-rolling, and re-rolling. Here's the re-roll, getting 1 wound, 1 3-up armor save, which passes. 8 attacks from their Prehensile Proboscis, hitting on 4s, getting 3 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 5s, re-rolling, getting 3 wounds, 3 3-up armor saves, passing all 3. 7 attacks back from the Ravenwing Black Knights with their Corvus Hammers, hitting on 3s, getting 5 hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 5 thanks to the Corvus Hammers, wounding on 4s, re-rolling 1s thanks to the Talon Master, getting 2 wounds, 2 definite fails, and a re-roll. And here's the re-roll, getting another wound. And the wound roll of 6 up will cause D3 damage instead of just 1. So the 5-up invulnerable against the D3 damage, and that passes. 2 5-up invulnerable saves on the 1 damage attacks, and both of those fail. So 2 5-up disgustingly resilient, and both of those fail as well. So the Plague Drone Sergeant will lose his final wound and be killed off, and then the Plague Drone with the demonic icon will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 3. Going into the morale phase, we will start with this Plague Drone squad. They only lost 1 model, which means it's impossible for them to fail. However, because the demonic icon is still alive, on a roll of a 1, they will get a slain model back. And here's the roll, rolling a 5. So the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will use 1 command point, going from 4 down to 3, in order to re-roll that. Looking for a 1, and they get it. So they will get a slain model back. And so the slain Plague Drone Sergeant will be placed back here so that he is just within 2-inch coherency with the demonic icon who's locked in combat, but this way he is just within 6 inches of the Demon Prince and just within 7 inches of the Great Unclean One. Next, this squad of Ravenwing Black Knights lost a model, however, thanks to Inner Circle, they automatically pass morale checks. Finally, this squad of Tactical Marines did lose 3 models this turn. The Sergeant does have a leadership of 8, which means that they can only fail on a 6. And so here's their morale check roll. And they roll a 6, of course, but thanks to And They Shall Know No Fear, they get to re-roll it. And so here's the re-roll, and they pass. And so at the end of Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn 1, they are currently holding on to 3 objective markers, which means that the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have a score of 3 victory points, and the Dark Angels have a score of 3 victory points as well. Going into Dark Angels turn 2, a reminder that the Dark Angels have 3 command points available, and the Chaos Demons of Nurgle also have 3 command points available. Going into the movement phase for Dark Angels turn 2, we will begin with this Nephilim Jet Fighter, which will pivot up to 90 degrees to its right, and then it will move up the board at least 20 inches, but no more than 50. And it will finish its movement right here. Its base is less than 2 inches away from the Demon Prince of Nurgle, and its base is more than 2 inches away from the squad of Plague Bearers. This Nephilim Jet Fighter is now going to pivot up to 90 degrees to its right, and will move up the board at least 20 inches, but no more than 50. And it will finish its movement right here, making sure to stay just over an inch away from those Plague Bearers. Next, the Ravenwing Talon Master is going to move up the board up to 16 inches, and it will finish its movement right here, making sure to stay over an inch away from the Demon Prince. But the Demon Prince of Nurgle is the closest enemy unit, and also visible, which means that the Ravenwing Talon Master will be able to target it in the shooting phase, if he so desires. This squad of Tactical Marines will remain still. This squad of Ravenwing Black Knights will fall back out of combat, and they will fall back to here. And before I forget, The Dark Angels are going to use the stratagem Intractable for 2 command points, bring them from 3 down to 1 left. Use this stratagem after one of your Dark Angels units has fallen back. That unit can still shoot this turn. And that, of course, will be the Ravenwing Black Knights. This squad of 2 Tactical Marines will remain still. This squad of 4 Tactical Marines will remain still. This Predator will also remain still. This Land Raider Redeemer is going to move up the board up to 10 inches in order to get within range for its Flamestorm cannons to be able to fire onto the squad of 6 Plague Drones. And it will finish its movement right here. So going into the shooting phase, we will begin with this squad of 4 Tactical Marines, all firing their bolt guns at full range into this squad of Plague Drones. 4 shots, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 hits and 2 rerolls. And here's the 2 rerolls, getting 1 additional hit. Strength 4 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 5s, getting 2 wounds. 2 5-up invulnerable saves, failing both. 1 damage apiece, so 2 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, and both of those will fail as well. And so the injured regular Plague Drone in the back will lose its final 2 wounds and be removed. Next, the Land Raider Redeemer will fire everything that it has into this squad of 5 Plague Drones, beginning with 2 D6 shots from the Flamestorm cannons, getting 5 shots. This weapon automatically hits, so 5 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, getting 5 wounds. 5 5-up invulnerable saves, failing all 5, and they will do 2 damage apiece, and unfortunately we cannot roll them all at the same time since damage does not carry over from model to model. However, since all 5 of the remaining Plague Drones are at their 4 starting wounds apiece, we can start by rolling the first 2 strikes together. So 4 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 1 and failing 3. That will bring the first Plague Drone from this volley down from 4 starting wounds to 1. So we will roll the 3rd strike now to see if that finishes it off, looking for 2 5-up disgustingly resilient, passing 1 and failing 1. So that will kill off a full Plague Drone. But this means that we can roll strike number 4 and 5 together, because at most they will do 4 damage. So 4 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 1 and failing 3. So 1 regular Plague Drone will be fully killed off, and then the last regular Plague Drone with no upgrades will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 1. 12 shots from the Twin Assault Cannon, hitting on 3s, getting 8 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, getting 5 wounds. 5 5-up invulnerable saves, passing 2 and failing 3, and they are 1 damage apiece, so they can all be rolled all together. 3 5-up disgustingly resilient, passing 1 and failing 2. So that will remove the final wound on the hurt Plague Drone, which will kill him off from the battlefield. And then the instrument will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 3. This Predator will now fire everything that it has into this squad of Plague Drones, starting with 2 last cannon shots, hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits. Strength 9 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, getting 2 wounds. 2 5-up invulnerable saves, failing both. And because they do D6 damage apiece, we have to do them separately. So resolving strike number 1 will do 3 damage. 3 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 2 and failing 1. And then the second strike will do D6 damage, doing 2 damage. 2 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 1 and failing 1 more. And so after taking 2 total damage, the Plague Drone with the instrument will fall from 3 wounds down to 1 left. 2 D3 shots from the Predator autocannon, getting 2 shots. Hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit. Strength 7 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on a 3, and it fails to wound. Thanks to the Land Raider being in the way, this squad of Tactical Marines cannot see the Plague Drones. So the Sergeant will fire 1 shot at full range with his bolt gun, and the Plasma Cannon will fire supercharged shots into the Warlord Rodigus. 1 shot first from the bolt gun, hitting on a 3, and it hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on a 5, and it fails to wound. D3 supercharged shots from the Plasma Cannon, getting 1 shot. Hitting on a 3, rerolling 1s, getting a hit. Strength 8 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on a 3, and it fails to wound. Now the squad of 3 Ravenwing Black Knights will fire supercharged shots from their Plasma Talons into the squad of Plague Drones. And they will use the stratagem Weapons from the Dark Age once again for 1 command point, bring them from 1 down to 0. And we won't read through it again, but it will add 1 to the damage characteristics from plasma weapons. So beginning with the Sergeant, then the Biker in the middle, and then the final regular Biker on the end. And these have to be done separately because ones will kill them, and there are no rerolls since they moved. So, starting with the Sergeant, hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits. Biker in the middle, hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits. Final Biker on the end, hitting on 3s, and wow, getting 2 hits. All 6 hit. Strength 8 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s. And it's unfortunate that they're no longer within 6 inches of the Ravenwing Talonmaster, getting only 3 wounds. 3, 5 up and vulnerable saves. Passing 2 and failing 1. But it is 3 damage now thanks to the stratagem, so 3, 5 up disgustingly resilient rolls, and failing all 3. And so the final 3 wounds on the demonic icon are removed, and the demonic icon is killed off. Next, this tactical Marine squad will fire everything that they have into this lone plague drone. The Sergeant is within rapid fire range, so he will fire 2 shots. The 3 regular Marines will have to fire 1 shot at full range apiece, and the plasma cannon will fire supercharged shots. Starting with the 5 shots from the bolt guns, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting 3 hits and 2 rerolls. And here's the 2 rerolls, getting 1 additional hit. Strength 4 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 5s, getting 2 wounds. 2 5 up and vulnerable saves, failing both. 1 damage piece, so 2 5 up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 1 and failing 1. So the Plague Drone Sergeant will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 3. D6 shots from the Plasma Cannon, getting just 1 shot, hitting on a 3 and it hits, wounding on a 3 and it wounds. 1 5 up and vulnerable save, which fails. 2 damage since it's supercharged, so 2 5 up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 1 and failing 1. So the Plague Drone Sergeant will fall from 3 wounds down to 2. The Ravenwing Talonmaster is going to fire its Twin Assault Cannon into the Demon Prince, and then he will fire his Twin Heavy Bolter into the Plague Drone Sergeant. Starting with the Twin Assault Cannon, 12 shots hitting on 3s, getting 6 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 3 wounds and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll, getting a 4th wound. Minus 1 AP, so 4 up armor saves, passing 1 and failing 3. 1 damage piece, so 3 5 up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 1 and failing 2. And so the Demon Prince will fall from 8 starting wounds down to 6. 6 shots from the Twin Heavy Bolter into the Plague Drone, hitting on 3s, getting 4 hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 wounds. 2 5 up and vulnerable saves, failing both. 1 damage apiece, so 2 5 up disgustingly resilient rolls, and passing both. Next, this Nephilim jet fighter is going to fire its Black Sword missile launchers and its Avenger Mega Bolter into the Demon Prince of Nurgle, and it will fire its Twin Heavy Bolter into this Plague Drone. 2 shots from the Black Sword missile launchers, hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting a wound and a reroll. And here's the reroll, getting 2 wounds. Minus 3 AP, so 2 5 up and vulnerable saves, failing both. And 2 damage apiece, so 4 5 up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 1 and failing 3. So the Demon Prince will fall from 6 wounds down to 3 left. 10 shots from the Avenger Mega Bolter, hitting on 3s, getting 7 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 5 wounds, a definite fail, and a reroll. And here's the rerolls. Getting a 6th wound, minus 1 AP, so 6 4-up armor saves, passing 4 and only failing 1. And it is 1 damage, so 1 5-up disgustingly resilient roll, which fails. So the Demon Prince will fall from 3 wounds down to 2 left. And now for 6 shots from the Twin Heavy Bolter onto the Plague Drone, hitting on 3s, getting 4 hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 3 wounds. 3 5-up and vulnerable saves, failing all 3. 1 damage apiece, so 3 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, and failing all 3. So that will finish off the 2 remaining wounds on the Plague Drone Sergeant, and so the Plague Drone Sergeant will be killed off, and that will be first blood. Finally, this Nephilim jet fighter will fire its Black Sword missile launchers into the Great Unclean One with the Plague Flail, and then he will fire his Avenger Mega Bolter and Twin Heavy Bolter into the Plague Bearers right next to him. Beginning with the Black Sword missile launcher shots, hitting on 3s, failing to hit. 10 shots from the Avenger Mega Bolter into the Plague Bearers, hitting on 3s, hitting on 2s because of strafing run. Not that that actually mattered, because they couldn't be bothered to roll a single 2. Rolling 4 1s though, so getting 6 hits. Strength 6 versus toughness 4 means wounding on 3s. Getting 6 wounds though. 6 5 up and vulnerable saves. Passing 3 and failing 3. 1 damage apiece, so 3 5 up disgustingly resilient rolls. And passing all 3. 6 shots from the twin heavy bolter. Hitting on 2s. Getting 4 hits. Strength 5 versus toughness 4 means wounding on 3s. Getting 3 wounds. 3 5 up and vulnerable saves. Passing 1 and failing 2. 1 damage apiece, so 2 5 up disgustingly resilient rolls. And failing both. So 2 Plague Bearers will be removed, leaving 8 left alive in the squad. Going into the assault phase, there is 1 charge to declare, which will be the Ravenwing Talonmaster declaring a charge onto the Demon Prince of Nurgle. There is no overwatch, however, the Talonmaster is charging through a crater. And so here's the charge range. Rolling double 1s, which will automatically fail. So the Ravenwing Talonmaster will not make it in. Going into the morale phase, this squad of Plague Bearers did lose 2 models this turn, however, they are within 6 inches of the Great Unclean One, who is a greater demon, so they can use his leadership of 10, and therefore it is impossible for them to fail. Finally, this squad of Plague Drones lost 3 models this turn, however, they are within 6 inches of a Great Unclean One, and therefore can use his leadership of 10 since he is a greater demon, so it's impossible to fail. But since they do have a demonic icon in the group, if they roll a 1 for their morale check, they will get a slain model back. And so here's the roll for their morale check. They roll a 5, so they pass and nothing happens. And so at the end of Dark Angel's turn 2, the Dark Angels are currently holding 3 objective markers, just like in turn 1. And so the Dark Angels have a score of 7 victory points, and the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have a score of 3 victory points. Going into Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn 2, a reminder that the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have 3 command points available, and the Dark Angels have 0 command points available. At the beginning of the turn, we need to roll for reverberating summons, so we will first resolve this Great Unclean One, potentially bring the model back into this Plague Bearer squad. So on a 4 up, and they fail. We also need to resolve reverberating summons for this squad of Plague Drones, which is on a 4 up, and they will get it, so they get a slain model back. And because they can, they will place it up here within unit coherency. So going into the movement phase, this squad of Plague Bearers will remain still. This squad of Plague Bearers will remain still. Finally, this squad of Plague Bearers will also remain still. This squad of Plague Bearers is going to move up the board up to 10 inches. And they will finish their movement like so. Next, this Demon Prince of Nurgle is going to move up the board up to 12 inches. And he will finish his movement right here. Next, the Great Unclean One armed with Corruption is going to move up the board up to 7 inches. And he will finish his movement right here. Next, Rodigus is going to move up the board up to 7 inches. And Rodigus will finish up right there. Next, the Demon Prince is going to move up the board up to 12 inches. And he will finish up right here. The Great Unclean One armed with Plague Flail is now going to move up the board up to 7 inches. And he is just over an inch away from the Ravenwing Talonmaster. And at the end of the movement phase, the Chaos Demons of Nurgle are going to use the stratagem Revolting Regeneration for 2 command points, bring them from 3 down to 1. Use this stratagem at the end of your movement phase, select one of your Nurgle demon units. One model in that unit regains D3 lost wounds if there are no wounded models in the unit, and that unit has suffered any casualties. A single slain model from the unit is returned to play with 1 wound remaining. And this will be used on the Demon Prince of Nurgle, who's down to 2 wounds. So D3 lost wounds will come back, and 2 will come back. So the Demon Prince of Nurgle will go back up from 2 wounds to 4. Moving into the Psychic phase, we will begin with the same Demon Prince of Nurgle attempting to manifest Fleshy Abundance onto himself. And Fleshy Abundance has a warp charge value of 5. And he fails with a 4. And so the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will use their last command point going from 1 down to 0 for a command reroll to reroll the 1. And here's the reroll. And they pass with a 6. So it will bring back D3 wounds, and it will bring back just 1 wound. So the Demon Prince of Nurgle will go back up from 4 wounds to 5. The Great Unclean One, armed with Plague Flail, is going to attempt to manifest Stream of Corruption and Smite onto the Ravenwing Talonmaster. And we will begin with Stream of Corruption, which has a warp charge value of 5. And he gets it with a 5. And it will do D3 mortal wounds, and it will do 1 mortal wound. So the Ravenwing Talonmaster will fall from 6 starting wounds down to 5. And now for Smite, which also has a warp charge value of 5, and he gets it with a 7. D3 mortal wounds, and that will do 2 mortal wounds. So the Ravenwing Talonmaster will fall from 5 wounds down to 3. Rodriguez will now attempt to manifest Miasma of Pestilence and Virulent Blessing onto the Great Unclean One armed with Corruption. Starting with Miasma of Pestilence, which has a warp charge value of 6, and he fails with a 3. Now for Virulent Blessing, which has a warp charge value of 7, and he passes with a 7. And thanks to Deluge of Nurgle, the Land Raider Redeemer, which is the closest enemy model to Rodriguez, will suffer a mortal wound, since Rodriguez passed that psychic test with a psychic test of 7 or more. So the Land Raider Redeemer will fall from 16 starting wounds down to 15. The Great Unclean One armed with Corruption will now attempt to manifest Smite onto the Land Raider Redeemer because it is the closest visible enemy unit within 18 inches. Smite now has a warp charge value of 6, and it passes with a 6. It will do D3 mortal wounds, and it will do 3 mortal wounds. So the Land Raider Redeemer will fall from 15 wounds down to 12. Finally, in the Psychic phase, the last Demon Prince of Nurgle will attempt to manifest Smite onto the Predator because it is the closest visible enemy unit within 18 inches. Smite now has a warp charge value of 7, and it fails with a 3. Going into the shooting phase, Rodriguez is going to fire his streams of brackish filth into the Land Raider Redeemer. 2 D6 shots, getting just 2 shots. This weapon automatically hits, so 2 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 8 means wounding on 5s. Rerolling. And here's the 2 rerolls. Getting 1 wound. Minus 3 AP, so 1 5-up armor save, which fails. And it will do 1 damage, so the Land Raider Redeemer will fall from 12 wounds down to 11. Next, this squad of Plague Drones is going to fire. The one in the back is going to fire its Death's Heads into the Predator, but the other 3 are in 12-inch range to fire their Death's Heads into this squad of 4 Tactical Marines. Beginning with the 2 onto the Predator, hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s thanks to the Demon Prince, getting a hit and a reroll. And here's the reroll, getting 2 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 5s, rerolling 1s, and failing to wound. Now 6 shots onto the Tactical Marines, hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 3 hits and 2 rerolls. And here's the rerolls, getting 5 hits total. Strength 4 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 4 wounds. No AP, so 4 3-up armor saves, and they pass all 4. Finally, this Great Unclean One will fire his Plague Flail into the Ravenwing Talonmaster. 3 shots, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 3s. And failing to wound. Going into the assault phase, there are multiple charges to declare. However, some of the charges will be contingent on whether or not previous charges made it in. So we will start with this Great Unclean One with Plague Flail charging into the Ravenwing Talonmaster. Starting with Overwatch, from the Twin Assault Cannon, 12 shots, hitting on 6s, getting 1 hit. Strength 6 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on a 5, rerolling 1s, and failing to wound. 6 shots from the Twin Heavy Bolter, hitting on 6s, getting 1 hit. Strength 5 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on a 5, rerolling 1s, and rerolling the 1. And here's the reroll, getting a wound. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which passes. Just over an inch away, so anything other than double 1s, and he makes it in with an 8. And the Great Unclean One is now locked in base-to-base with the Ravenwing Talonmaster, which means we need to resolve Crushing Bulk on a 4-up, and it will go off. So the Ravenwing Talonmaster will suffer a mortal wound, and the Ravenwing Talonmaster will fall from 3 wounds down to 2. Next, this Demon Prince of Nurgle is going to charge solely into the Ravenwing Black Knights. So they will fire their Plasma Talons in Overwatch, and they will fire standard shots. So 6 shots total, hitting on 6s, and failing to hit. And here's his charge range, getting 8 inches. And since the Demon Prince is exactly 5 inches away, even though he's charging through a crater, that is more than enough. So the Demon Prince is now locked in combat. Rodriguez is now going to declare his charge onto the Land Raider Redeemer. He is just under 5 inches away, which means normally he would need a 4-inch charge to get within an inch, but he's going through a crater, obviously. So he will need to roll a 6-inch charge in order to get the 4 inches he needs to make it within an inch. But we do have Overwatch first, of course, starting with the Flamestorm Cannons. 2d6 shots, getting 10 shots. This weapon automatically hits, so 10 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 5s, getting 7 wounds. 7 5-up and vulnerable saves, passing 1, failing 6. And they are 2 damage apiece, so 12 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 3 and failing 9. So Rodigus will fall from 18 starting wounds down to 9. 12 shots from the Twin Assault Cannon, hitting on 6s, getting 4 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 5s, getting 3 wounds. 3 5-up and vulnerable saves, passing all 3. And here's his charge, and he fails it with a 4. Next, the Great Unclean One armed with Corruption will charge in. He is 7.5 inches away, so he will need a 9-inch charge. Starting with Overwatch first, of course, and because he is 7.5 inches away, the Flamestorm Cannons can fire again. 2d6 shots, getting 5 shots. This weapon automatically hits, so 5 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 5s, getting 1 wound. 1 5-up and vulnerable save, which passes. 12 shots from the Twin Assault Cannon, hitting on 6s and failing to hit. Now for charge range, looking for at least a 9, and he gets it, so he will make it in. And so the Great Unclean One will make it into combat, not in base to base though, because he was 7.5 inches away charging through a crater, so he is half an inch away, but he is locked in combat. This squad of plague drones is now going to charge the Predator. 2 shots from the last cannons in Overwatch, hitting on 6s, failing to hit. 2 D3 shots from the Predator autocannon, getting 2 shots, hitting on 6s, failing to hit. And here's their charge, getting 4 inches. But that will not be enough, even though they do have an instrument, because they are charging through a crater. And finally, the Demon Prince will attempt to charge the Predator. 2 shots from the last cannons, hitting on 6s, getting 1 hit. Strength 9 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on a 3, and it wounds. Minus 3 AP, so 1 5-up and vulnerable save, which passes. 2 D3 shots from the Predator autocannon, getting 5 shots, hitting on 6s. All failed to hit. And here's the charge range, getting 9 inches. And he was less than 7 inches away, so a 9-inch charge even through the crater is more than enough to make it in. However, he's only going to get within about half an inch so that he can stay within 6 of the Great Unclean One in order to provide him the ability to reroll hit rolls of 1. And before we finish the assault phase, I do need to go back and resolve the crushing bulk from the Great Unclean One onto the Land Raider. On a 4-up, and it fails. So going into the fight phase, we will begin with the Great Unclean One armed with Plague Flail, placing his attacks onto the Ravenwing Talonmaster. 5 attacks from the Great Unclean One onto the Ravenwing Talonmaster with the Doomsday Bell, hitting on 2s, getting 5 hits. Strength 8 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 3s, getting only 2 wounds, but one of them is a 6 for Locus of Virulence, which will do +1 damage. And they are D3 damage normally apiece. Minus 1 AP, so first the 4-up armor save against the wound roll of a 6, which passes, and then a 4-up armor save against the normal wound, which fails. So it will do D3 damage, and it will do 2 damage. So that will finish off the Ravenwing Talonmaster, and he will be killed. And the Great Unclean One will not consolidate, because if he did, he would have to consolidate backwards towards the Nephilim Jet Fighter, since it is the closest enemy unit. And since he cannot attack the Nephilim Jet Fighter, he would rather move up the board towards the objective marker and the Dark Angel deployment zone, so he will not consolidate. Next, we will resolve this Demon Prince onto the Ravenwing Black Knights. 7 attacks, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, getting 5 hits and 2 rerolls. And here's the rerolls, getting 7 hits total. Strength 7 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, getting 7 wounds. Locus of Virulence does not matter because they are already 2 damage apiece to begin with. The Ravenwing Black Knights only have 2 wounds apiece, and damage will not carry over. So 7 5-up armor saves because minus 2 AP, passing 3 but failing 4. In fact, it wouldn't have mattered what their armor save was because there were 3 1s in there, and so that will wipe out the squad. And now the Demon Prince will consolidate up to 3 inches, and he will consolidate into combat with the Tactical Marines. And while the Demon Prince will not be able to place attacks onto them, as he did not declare charge onto them, and he already attacked anyways, but now Now, the Tactical Marines are locked in combat. Moving over to the other Demon Prince, attacking the Predator. 7 attacks, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, getting 7 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 4s. Wow, that's pretty bad. Getting only 2 wounds, but one of them is a 6. Minus 2 AP, so 1 5-up armor save against the normal wound, which passes, and then 1 5-up armor save against the wound roll of a 6, which will go through and it will do 3 damage instead of normally 2. So the Predator will fall from 8 wounds down to 5. Finally, on Nurgle's side, we will resolve the Great Unclean One with Corruption against the Land Raider Redeemer, but first he will pile in. Now he's in base-to-base with the Land Raider Redeemer. 5 attacks base with Corruption onto the Land Raider Redeemer, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1, since he's still within 6 inches of the Demon Prince of Nurgle, getting 4 hits and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll, getting 1 additional hit. Strength 9 against Toughness 8 from the Land Raider means wounding on 3s. However, thanks to Virulent Blessing from Rodigus, he gets to add 1 to wound rolls. So wounding on 2s. However, thanks to his artifact Corruption, he has to reroll all failed wound rolls for this weapon, and rerolls, of course, happen before modifiers. So even though that 2 would normally count as a wound, that has to be rerolled along with the 1s. And here's the rerolls, getting 2 more wounds, and of course, because of adding 1 to wound rolls, that 5 will affect Locus of Virulence, which will add a damage. Minus 3 AP, so first the 5-up armor save against the wound that will do +1 damage, and that will go through. So it will do D3 plus 1, and it will do 3 damage total. And now the 3 5-up armor saves against the normal wounds, passing 2 and failing 1. So the one that goes through will do D3 damage, and it will do 3 damage as well. So 6 damage total, which will drop the Land Raider Redeemer from 11 wounds down to 5. Now for the Attendant's Claws and Teeth. D6 additional attacks, getting 2 attacks, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 hits. Strength 2 versus Toughness 8 means wounding on 6s, but we get to add 1 to wound rolls thanks to Virulent Blessing, so actually wounding on 5s, and rerolling 1s. So getting a wound and a fail. However, thanks to adding 1 to the wound roll, Virulent Blessing gives wound rolls of 7 up, which that was because it's 6 plus 1, makes wound rolls of 7 up do double damage, so the 1 becomes a 2, thanks to doubling, and then also adding 1 thanks to Locus of Virulence for 3 damage total if this gets passed. No AP, however, so 1 2-up armor save, which passes. So now that all of the charging units have gone, we will now go into units that did not charge, which are all from the Dark Angel side, and we will begin with this Tactical Marine squad. So after piling in, all 5 models are now either within an inch of the Demon Prince or within an inch of a friendly model who's within an inch of the Demon Prince, so all 5 will be able to attack. 6 attacks, hitting on 3s, getting 4 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 5s, getting 1 wound. 1 3-up armor save, which passes. Next, the Land Raider Redeemer will strike against the Great Unclean One. Since the Land Raider is down to 5 wounds, D6 attacks, getting 1 attack, hitting on a 6, and it fails to hit. Now the Predator will strike against the Demon Prince. D3 attacks since he's down to 5 wounds, getting 1 attack just like the Land Raider, hitting on a 6, and it fails to hit. So going into the morale phase, there are no morale checks to take. And so at the end of Chaos Demons of Nurgle Turn 2, Chaos Demons of Nurgle are currently holding 3 objective markers, and therefore they score an additional 3 victory points. And so currently, the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have a score of 6 victory points, and the Dark Angels have a score of 7 victory points thanks to First Blood. Going into Dark Angels Turn 3, a reminder that the Dark Angels have 0 command points available, and the Chaos Demons of Nurgle also have 0 command points available. And before we go into the movement phase for Dark Angels Turn 3, we do need to go back and resolve 1 extra wound roll from the Overwatch between the Ravenwing Talonmaster and the Great Unclean One, because I did go back and take a look at the footage and saw that with the Twin Assault Cannon, the Ravenwing Talonmaster had gotten 2 hit rolls and not just 1, so we need to go and resolve 1 extra hit roll. Luckily, it will not affect anything that happened in the fight phase, but it could possibly affect things later in the game. So strength 6 versus toughness 7 means wounding on a 5, rerolling 1s, and getting a wound. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which fails, and it will do 1 damage, so 1 5-up disgustingly resilient, which also fails. And so the Great Unclean One, armed with Plague Flail, will fall from 18 starting wounds down to 17. So now going into the movement phase, for Dark Angel's turn 3, we will begin with this Tactical Marine squad falling back out of combat with the Demon Prince. And they are now all over an inch away from the Demon Prince, so they are no longer in combat. However, they have made sure to stay within 3 inches of the center of that objective marker, and since they are a troop choice, they get priority for holding it. This Tactical Marine squad will remain still. This Tactical Marine squad will also remain still. This Predator will fall back up to 6 inches now that he's down to 5 wounds to get out of combat with the Demon Prince. And it will fall back to here. Belial, along with the squad of Deathwing Knights, are now going to disembark from this Land Raider. And they will disembark like so, making sure to stay over an inch away from any enemy models. And so now the Deathwing Knights and Belial are going to move up to 5 inches in order to reposition. And they will reposition like so, making sure to stay over an inch away. The Land Raider Redeemer, now that it's down to 5 wounds, is going to fall back out of combat with the Great Unclean One up to 5 inches. And it will fall back to here. This Nephilim Jet Fighter is now going to pivot up to 90 degrees to its right, and it will fly up the board at least 20 inches, but no more than 50. And it will finish its movement right here. This Nephilim Jet Fighter will now pivot up to 90 degrees to its right and move up the board at least 20 inches, but no more than 50. And it will finish its movement right here. Going into the shooting phase, this squad of 4 Tactical Marines will all fire their bolt guns in rapid fire range into this squad of plague drones, but the sergeant, instead of firing a bolt gun, will actually fire a crack grenade. So first, throwing the crack grenade. 1 shot, hitting on a 3, and it hits. Strength 6 versus toughness 5 means wounding on a 3, and it wounds. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which fails. And it will do D3 damage, and it will do 3 damage. 3 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 2 and failing 1. And the instrument right here is down to 1 wound, and so he will be removed as a casualty. Now for 6 bolt gun shots in rapid fire range, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting 6 hits. Strength 4 versus toughness 5 means wounding on 5s, and failing to wound. The Predator cannot shoot since it fell back this turn, so it will pop smoke. The Land Raider Redeemer also cannot shoot since it fell back this turn, so the Land Raider Redeemer will pop smoke as well. This squad of 5 Tactical Marines fell back, and therefore they will also not be able to shoot this turn. Now that the Land Raider Redeemer has fallen back, this squad of 2 Tactical Marines will be able to fire everything that they have into the Great Unclean One armed with Corruption. They are over 6 inches away, however, so the Sergeant will fire rapid fire with his bolt gun, and the Plasma Cannon will fire supercharged shots. Starting with 2 shots from the bolt gun, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s thanks to standing still and getting 1 hit. Strength 4 versus toughness 7 means wounding on a 5, and it wounds. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which fails, and 1 damage, so 1 5-up disgustingly resilient, which passes. D3 supercharged shots, getting 3 shots, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting a hit, a definite miss, and a reroll. And here's the reroll, getting a 2nd hit. Strength 8 versus toughness 7 means wounding on 3s, getting 1 wound, 1 5-up invulnerable save, which fails, 2 damage since it's supercharged, so 2 5-up disgustingly resilient, passing 1 and failing 1. So the Great Unclean One, armed with Corruption, will fall from 17 wounds down to 16. Belial will now fire his Stormbolter into the Demon Prince, since it is the closest visible enemy unit. Although thanks to his Warlord trait, he'd be able to fire at the enemy character anyways, even if it's not the closest enemy unit, since he has the Warlord trait Huntsman. 4 shots in rapid fire range, hitting on 2s. Getting 4 hits. Strength 4 versus toughness 6 means wounding on 5s. Getting 3 wounds. No AP, so 3 3-up armor saves. Passing 1 but failing 2. So the Demon Prince of Nurgle will fall from 8 starting wounds down to 6. This Nephilim Jet Fighter is going to fire its Black Sword missile launchers into the Great Unclean One armed with Corruption, and it will fire its Avenger Mega Bolter and Twin Heavy Bolter into the squad of 3 Plague Drones. 2 shots from the Black Sword missile launchers, hitting on 2s thanks to Strafing Run, and that was almost a cocked dice, getting 2 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 4s, getting 1 wound. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which passes. 10 shots from the Avenger Megabolter, hitting on 3s. No more strafing runs since the Plague Drones are flying, which made a bit of a difference, getting 7 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, getting 5 wounds. 5-up invulnerable saves, passing 3 and failing 2. 1 damage piece, so 2 5-up disgustingly resilient, passing 1 and failing 1. So this regular Plague Drone on the end will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 3. 6 shots from the Twin Heavy Bolter, hitting on 3s, getting 3 hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 4s, getting 1 wound. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which passes. Finally, the other Nephilim Jet Fighter will do the exact same thing. 2 Black Sword missile launcher shots into the Great Unclean One, and the Avenger Megabolter and Twin Heavy Bolter into the squad of Plague Drones. 2 shots from the Black Sword missile launchers hitting on 2s, getting 2 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 4s, getting 1 wound. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which passes. 10 shots from the Avenger Megabolter hitting on 3s, getting only 6 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, getting 4 wounds. 5-up invulnerable saves, passing 2 and failing 2. 1 damage piece, so 2 5-up disgustingly resilient, and passing both. 6 shots from the Twin Heavy Bolter hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit. Would have been 5 hits if the Plague Drones didn't have the fly keyword. Strength 5 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on a 4, and it wounds. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which fails. 1 5-up disgustingly resilient roll, which also fails. So the regular Plague Drone will fall from 3 wounds down to 2. Going into the assault phase, there are 2 charges to declare. First is Belial declaring a charge onto the Demon Prince, and second will be the squad of Deathwing Knights declaring a multi-charge onto the Demon Prince and the Great Unclean One. The primary target for the Deathwing Knights will be the Demon Prince. And we will start with the Deathwing Knights. There is no Overwatch, so here's the charge range. Getting 6 inches, which will be more than enough. And then for Belial, who will get 9 inches. And they will charge in like so. So the 4 regular Deathwing Knights are now in base-to-base with the Great Unclean One. The Knight Master is in base-to-base with the Demon Prince. And Belial is also in base-to-base with the Demon Prince. And we will begin with Belial. 4 attacks with the Sword of Silence onto the Demon Prince and Nurgle from Belial. Hitting on 2s, re-rolling. Getting 3 hits and 1 re-roll. And here's the re-roll. Still failing to hit. This weapon always wounds on 2-ups unless against a vehicle, getting 2 wounds. Minus 3 AP, so 2 5-up invulnerable saves, passing 1 and failing 1. And it does 2 damage apiece, so 2 5-up disgustingly resilient and passing both. Lastly, for the Dark Angels, the Deathwing Knights will attack. The 4 regular Deathwing Knights will attack the Great Unclean One, and the Knight Master will place his attacks onto the Demon Prince. Beginning with the Knight Master and his Flail of the Unforgiven onto the Demon Prince, 3 attacks, hitting on 3s, re-rolling, getting triple 6s, so 3 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 4s, getting 1 wound. Minus 3 AP, so 1 5-up invulnerable save, which fails, and it will do 2 damage apiece, so 2 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, and failing both of those. So the Demon Prince will fall from 6 wounds down to 4. 8 attacks from the regular Deathwing Knights and their Maces of Absolution onto the Great Unclean One, hitting on 3s, re-rolling, getting 5 hits and 3 re-rolls. And here's the re-rolls, getting 1 additional hit. Strength 8 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 3s, getting 3 wounds. 3 5-up invulnerable saves, passing 1 and failing 2. 3 damage apiece, so 6 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 2 and failing 4. So the Great Unclean One will suffer 4 wounds and go from 16 wounds down to 12. And now resolving units that did not charge, which is all from the Chaos Demon of Nurgle army, we will begin with the Great Unclean One attacking the Deathwing Knights. The Great Unclean One is still at 12 wounds, so he's at his top tier on his damage chart. So he has 5 attacks base, hitting on 2s with Corruption, re-rolling 1s, thanks to the Demon Prince, and getting 5 hits. Strength 9 thanks to Corruption, versus Toughness 4, means wounding on 2s, re-rolling, Thank goodness for that. Getting 2 wounds and 3 rerolls. And here's the rerolls. Wow, still rolling triple 1s and failing to get any more wounds. One of the wound rolls was a 6 though, and thanks to Virulent Blessing still being on and Locus of Virulence, instead of doing the normal D3 damage, it will do 2d3 plus 1 and minus 3 AP of course. So first, the 3-up invulnerable save against the wound roll that was a 7-up. And it fails. So 2d3 plus 1 damage will do at least 2 damage, and they're only 2 wounds apiece on the Deathwing Knights, and the damage cannot carry over, so that will kill off 1 Deathwing Knight. And then the normal wound, a 3-up invulnerable save, which passes. So 1 regular Deathwing Knight will be killed off. And now the Demon Prince will resolve all of his attacks onto Belial. Thanks to Belial's special ability, Parrying Blade, the Demon Prince will have 7 attacks hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s. Getting 5 hits and a reroll. And here's the reroll, getting a 6th hit. Strength 7 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 3s. Getting 5 wounds and one of them is a 6. Minus 2 AP, so first the 4-up invulnerable save against the wound roll of a 6, which passes. And now 4 4-up invulnerable saves against the normal wounds. Passing 2 and failing 2, which will do a total of 4 damage. So Belial will fall from 6 starting wounds down to 2. Going into the morale phase, the Deathwing Knights did lose 1 model this turn. However, thanks to their special ability Inner Circle, they automatically pass morale checks. The Plague Drones also lost 1 model this turn, but they have a leadership of 7, so it's impossible for them to fail. Also, they are within 6 inches of a Great Unclean One, who is a Greater Demon, and therefore they'd be able to use his leadership of 10. But they will still take the morale check because on a roll of a 1, thanks to the demonic icon, they will get a slain model back. And here's their morale check roll, getting a 3, so they pass and nothing happens. And so at the end of Dark Angel's turn 3, the Dark Angels score another 3 victory points thanks to holding 3 objective markers. And so the Dark Angels have a score of 10 victory points, and the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have a score of 6 victory points. Going into Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn 3, a reminder that the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have 0 command points available, and the Dark Angels also have 0 command points available. At the beginning of the turn, we need to resolve reverberating summons, thanks to the Plague Drones being within 7 inches of a Great Unclean One armed with a Doomsday Bell. And so on a 4-up, and they get it. So they will get a slain model back. And so the instrument will be brought back to life and will be placed right here. Going into the movement phase for Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn 3, we will begin by having this squad of Plague Drones move up to 10 inches up the board. And they will finish their movement like so, making sure to remain over an inch away from the Tactical Marines. The Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings will remain locked in combat with Belial and the Deathwing Knights. The Great Unclean One armed with Corruption will remain locked in combat with the Deathwing Knights. Rodigus is now going to move up the board up to 7 inches. And he's actually only going to move up the board up to 5 inches, right to here, because he is down to 9 wounds, which means he's down to his 2nd tier on his damage chart. This Demon Prince of Nurgle is going to move up to 12 inches over to this side of the Tactical Marines. And he will finish his movement right here. The Great Unclean One armed with Plague Flail is going to move up the board up to 7 inches. And the Great Unclean One will finish his movement here, making sure to stay just over an inch away. This squad of 8 Plague Bearers will remain still. This squad of 10 Plague Bearers will also remain still. Finally, the last squad of 10 Plague Bearers will also remain still. Going into the Psychic phase for Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn 3, we will begin with Rodigus attempting to manifest Fleshy Abundance onto himself, and he will also attempt to manifest Miasma of Pestilence onto the Great Unclean One armed with Corruption. Beginning with Fleshy Abundance, which has a warp charge value of 5, and he gets it with an 11. So he will regenerate D3 wounds, and he will regenerate 2 wounds. So Rodigus will go back up from 9 wounds to 11. And thanks to his special ability, Deluge of Nurgle, since he manifested that psychic power on a psychic test of 7 or more, the closest enemy unit suffers a mortal wound, which is the Land Raider Redeemer. So the Land Raider Redeemer will fall from 5 wounds down to 4. And now for Miasma of Pestilence, which has a warp charge value of 6, and he gets it with a 6. Next, the Demon Prince of Nurgle is going to attempt to manifest Smite onto Belial, since he is in base-to-base contact, and therefore Therefore, Belial is equidistant with the Knight Master for being the closest enemy unit. And Smite has a warp charge value of 5, and he gets it with a 10. So we'll do D3 mortal wounds, and it will do 3. And so Belial will lose his final 2 wounds, and he will be slain for Slay the Warlord. Next, the Great Unclean One will attempt to manifest Smite onto the Deathwing Knights, and he will also attempt to manifest Nurgle's Rot, which, if it goes off, it will affect all non-Nurgle units within 7 inches, which will be the Deathwing Knights and the Land Raider Redeemer. Starting with Smite, which now has a warp charge value of 6, and he gets it with an 8. So D3 mortal wounds, and it will do 2 mortal wounds. And so 1 regular Deathwing Knight will be killed off. Now for Nurgle's Rot, which has a warp charge value of 7, and it passes with a 9. So for each unit that is not a Nurgle unit within 7 inches, we roll a dice, and on a 4-up, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. So starting with the Deathwing Knights, and they will suffer D3 mortal wounds, and they will suffer 2 mortal wounds from the D3. And so 1 more regular Deathwing Knight will go down, and now a 4-up for the Land Raider, which will fail, so no mortal wounds onto the Land Raider. This Great Unclean One will now attempt to manifest Smite and Stream of Corruption onto the squad of Tactical Marines. Smite now has a warp charge value of 7, and he gets it with a 10. D3 mortal wounds, and it will do 2 mortal wounds. So 2 regular Tactical Marines will go down. Now for Stream of Corruption, which has a warp charge value of 5, and he gets it with a 7. It will do D3 mortal wounds, and it will do just 1 mortal wound. And so a 3rd Tactical Marine will be killed off. Finally, in the Psychic phase, the 2nd Demon Prince of Nurgle will attempt to manifest Smite onto the 2 Tactical Marines. And Smite now has a warp charge value of 8, and it fails with a 7. Going into the Shooting phase, this Great Unclean One is going to fire his Plague Flail into the squad of Tactical Marines. 3 shots, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s. Course, rolling 2 2s. Strength 7 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on a 3, and it fails to wound. This squad of Plague Drones will now fire all of their Death's Heads into the squad of 4 Tactical Marines. 8 shots, hitting on 4s, getting 3 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 wounds. No AP, so 2 3-up armor saves, passing both. Finally, in the Shooting phase, Rodriguez is going to fire his Streams of Brackish Filth into the Land Raider, and it will do 2 D6 shots, getting 7 shots. This weapon automatically hits, so 7 hits. Strength 7, now that he's back up to 11 wounds, versus Toughness 8 means wounding on 5s, re-rolling, getting 4 wounds and 3 re-rolls. And here's the re-rolls. Getting 1 more wound. The wound rolls of 6, of course, will do 1 additional damage thanks to Locus of Virulence. Minus 3 AP, so 1 5-up armor save against a normal wound, which passes, and then 4 5-up armor saves against the 2 damage wounds. And failing all 4, so that is 8 damage. Does the Land Raider Redeemer explode on a 6? And it does not. So the Land Raider Redeemer will lose its last 4 wounds and be killed off. So going into the Assault phase, there are 4 charges to declare, first of which is Rodriguez onto the squad of 2 Tactical Marines. Rodriguez is exactly 6 inches away, which means he needs a 5-inch charge, but since he is going through the crater, he will have to roll at least 7 inches. Charge number 2 will be the Great Unclean One with Plague Flail charging into the squad of 2 Tactical Marines over here. Charge number 3 will be the Demon Prince of Nurgle charging into the squad of 2 Tactical Marines. And charge number 4 will be this squad of Plague Drones charging into the squad of 4 Tactical Marines. So we will begin with Overwatch from the squad of 2 Tactical Marines onto Rodriguez. Unfortunately for them, while the Plasma Cannon is exactly 6 inches away, the Sergeant is about 6 1/4 inches away, which means he cannot throw a crack grenade since he's not within 6 inches. So we will have 2 shots from the Sergeant's bolt gun and D3 supercharged Plasma Cannon shots. Starting with the bolt gun, 2 shots hitting on 6s, failing to hit. D3 supercharged shots, getting 3 shots, hitting on 6s, rerolling 1s, getting 1 hit. Strength 8 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on a 3, and it fails to wound. Needing at least a 7-inch charge, and of course rolling a 6, so failing to charge. Next, we will resolve the charge from the Great Unclean One onto the squad of 2 Tactical Marines. The Sergeant is close enough this time to throw a crack grenade, so 1 crack grenade on a 6, failing to hit, and no rerolls since they fell back in their previous turn, so they did not stand still. The Plasma Cannon will fire D3 supercharged shots, getting 1 shot, hitting on a 6, and he fails to hit. Charge range, anything other than double ones, and he makes it in. We will also roll the charge for the Demon Prince at the same time, getting 4 inches. And so both units will make it in like so. Finally, we will resolve the charge from the plague drones. The sergeant will throw a crack grenade on 6, and he fails to hit. 6 shots from 3 rapid-firing bolt guns hitting on 6s, rerolling 1s, and failing to hit. And here's their charge range, and they will make it in. And all of the plague drones are now locked in combat. So going into the fight phase, we will resolve these plague drones first. 5 attacks from the plague swords, hitting on 4s, hitting 2 hits. Strength 4 versus toughness 4 means wounding on 4s, hitting 2 wounds. No AP, so 2 3-up armor saves, passing 1 and failing 1. So 1 regular tactical marine will be killed off. Now for 16 attacks from the prehensile proboscis, hitting on 4s, getting 9 hits. Strength 4 versus toughness 4 means wounding on 4s, rerolling, getting 5 wounds and 4 rerolls. And here's the 4 rerolls, getting 7 wounds total. No AP, so 7 3-up armor saves, passing 5 and failing 2. And so the 2 other regular tactical marines will be killed off. And now the plague drones will consolidate in, and they are now completely surrounding the lone tactical marine sergeant. Next, we will resolve the Demon Prince onto the tactical marines over here. 7 attacks, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, getting 6 hits and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll, hitting a 7th hit. Strength 7 versus toughness 4 means wounding on 3s, getting 4 wounds. Locus of Violence won't matter because they are only 1 wound models. So 4 5-up armor saves thanks to -2 AP, passing 3 and failing 1. But before I go any further, I did forget to resolve Crushing Bulk from the Great Unclean One when it charged in, which could make all the difference. So on a 4-up, and it will. So a mortal wound should have been done at the end of the charge phase to the tactical marine squad. And for simplicity's sake, because either way, regardless of who had been killed off from the mortal wound, the Demon Prince would have been able to pile in and fight against either model. So we will say that the mortal wound killed off the plasma cannon, and then of course the 1 failed armor save against the Demon Prince's attacks will kill off the tactical marine sergeant and finish off that squad. This means, of course, that the Demon Prince can consolidate up to 3 inches over in this direction to be closer to the nearest enemy unit, which is kind of across the board at this point. Right to there. Now going into units that did not charge, beginning with Chaos Demons of Nurgle. Since it is their turn, we will begin with the Demon Prince placing his attacks onto the Deathwing Knights. 7 attacks, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, getting 5 hits and 2 rerolls. And here's the 2 rerolls, getting 7 hits total. Strength 7 versus toughness 4 means wounding on 3s, getting 6 wounds. -2 AP, so 6 3-up invulnerable saves. And they failed 4 of them, passing only 2. 2 damage apiece, so more than enough to finish off the final 2 models, which only have 2 wounds apiece to begin with. And so the Deathwing Knights are wiped out. And so now the Demon Prince of Nurgle over here will consolidate up to 3 inches towards the Predator because it is the closest enemy unit. And he will finish up right here. Finally, the lone tactical marine sergeant will strike back against the plague drones. 2 attacks from the sergeant, hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit. Strength 4 versus toughness 5 means wounding on 5. And it wounds. 1 5-up invulnerable save, which fails. Only 1 damage, so 1 5-up disgustingly resilient roll, which also fails. And so this regular plague drone right here will fall from 2 wounds down to 1 left. Going into the morale phase, this lone tactical marine sergeant did lose 3 models from his squad this turn, and because he has a leadership of 8, he could fail on a 6. And so here's his morale check roll, and he passes with a 3. And so at the end of Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn 3, Chaos Demons of Nurgle are now holding 4 objective markers. And so the Chaos Demons of Nurgle have a score of 11 victory points thanks to Slay the Warlord, and the Dark Angels have 10 victory points. Going into Dark Angels turn 4, a reminder that the Dark Angels have 0 command points available, and the Chaos Demons of Nurgle also have 0 command points available. And so at this point, the Dark Angels are going to concede the game. at the beginning of Dark Angel's turn 4. Because of this, the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will score Linebreaker, which means that we will have a final score of 12 victory points for the Chaos Demons of Nurgle and 10 victory points for the Dark Angels. So this is slightly awkward, but I had forgotten until I was almost done with the editing that because this is the mission, Dominate and Destroy, we do count kill points at the end as well. Now, of course, I didn't remember this until after I'd already cleaned everything off of the game table. After looking at all the different units and remembering where they were at on the board, I remembered that the Dark Angels only killed off one full unit of Plague Drones from the Chaos Demons of Nurgle, so they will get +1 victory point, and therefore have a final score of 11 victory points instead of 10. But the Chaos Demons of Nurgle did successfully kill off 6 units from the Dark Angel side. They killed off 1 full Tactical Marine squad, Belial, the Deathwing Knights, the Land Raider Redeemer, Ravenwing Talonmaster, and Ravenwing Black Knights. The Predator is not on the shelf because one of its guns fell off and I'm currently re-gluing it. So, but thanks to 6 kill points, the Chaos Demons of Nurgle will have a final score of 18 victory points. So we will actually have a final score of 18 to 11 in Nurgle's favor. So now that the game is officially over and it's been announced that the Dark Angels have conceded, so we have a major victory for the Chaos Demons of Nurgle. I can go over 1 or 2 of my final thoughts on the game. First and foremost, of course, is the reason for the concession at this point, and it should be fairly obvious with what's left on the board, but the Dark Angels have almost nothing left that can hold objective markers. Yes, I fully realize that both Nephilim jet fighters are still fully healthy and flying around the board. Unfortunately, flyers are not allowed to hold objectives, and because of that, Nurgle is about to run away with the victory points, and there is no way for the Dark Angels to table Nurgle at this point. I would like to point out that while right now, this lone Tactical Marine Sergeant, right here in the middle, of all of these Plague Drones is holding this objective marker, I'm pretty sure he will not survive in combat against those Plague Drones, but thanks to their consolidation move, they are completely surrounding him and he is not able to fall back out of combat. So he is stuck, which means he will be killed off and they will lose that objective marker. And so the Dark Angels are only going to be able to score 1 objective marker this turn, but that's it. Nephilim jet fighters are not able to achieve Linebreaker, just like they're not able to hold objective markers, and so they're not going to get a victory point for Linebreaker because there's no way they can make it across the map at this point. Because Rodriguez gained a couple wounds back, and the only shooting power that the Dark Angels have is 1 plasma cannon and 1 heavily wounded Predator, they're most likely not going to kill Rodriguez to achieve Slay the Warlord. After all, we saw how well the Black Sword missile launchers from the Nephilim jet fighters did against the other Great Unclean One. They did absolutely nothing, and I don't expect anything more than that from the Avenger Mega Bolters or Twin Heavy Bolters, so I effectively count out the Nephilim jet fighters. Also, the Nephilim jet fighters, in order to not kill themselves from running off the board, pretty much have to pivot to their right and fly up the board towards the Dark Angel deployment zone, which means they will be putting themselves potentially into charge range from the Demon Prince of Nurgle that's over in this area. But pretty much it's all about to go downhill exponentially for the Dark Angels, because if we go into another Nurgle turn, of course, both Tactical Marine squads should be finished off by the end of it. Rodriguez somehow failed that charge, but next turn he should be able to make it in, or at least kill them off with shooting, and control, of course, that middle objective marker, which means at the end of the next Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn, Chaos Demons of Nurgle turn 4, they will achieve 6 victory points for holding all 6 objective markers, and there's just nothing that the Dark Angels can do about that. So while this game started off a little slow for the Chaos Demons of Nurgle, they were able to bounce back and take back control, even though they had horrible rolls this game. So many 1s were rolled this game, so many failed charges, and they somehow still managed to slaughter the Dark Angels. It definitely didn't help on the Dark Angel side that those Ravenwing Black Knights ended up killing 2 of their own, thanks to rolling 1s on the hit rolls. And in fact, had a command point not have been used to re-roll one of them, they actually would have lost 3 bikers right away, which would have been horrible. So while the Chaos Demons of Nurgle had pretty poor rolls, the Dark Angels also had pretty poor rolls too, now that I think about it. Poor rolling all around. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for the next one.